Welcome to my last video of the year. So I've been doing these craft journal look backs for the last year, and I'm really glad that I started doing it because beforehand I had a tendency to not finish things that I'd started or put things down and then not remember what I was doing with them or where I was with it, and then not carrying on with it for whatever reason. And having the craft journal has really helped me to stay on track and keep going with things and kind of commit myself to actually finishing the things that I've started. I was toying with the idea of doing a year in review of all of the things that I've made for the year, but I felt that was kind of a bit redundant because I've done these videos each year and because I've made so many different small things, which is my preference really. I like making sort of quicker things. It would be a really long video and I don't think it would be interesting, and I wouldn't enjoy making a video that long anyway. I may do a sort of favourite from each month in the new year, but for the moment this is it for 2023. So here's December 2023. So the first thing that we're looking at is something I started in November and then finished in December. So this is a pair of gloves that I made for when I walk to and from work. When I made them, the weather was really, really cold, like it was minus in the mornings when I was walking to work. So I made these gloves, but I only wore them a couple of times and I've not worn them again since as it's warmed up. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They are in my rucksack that I use for work, ready for if I need to use them. And the way that I did the thumb, because I don't like how fiddly using double pointed needles is for something really small like that. It just, I put off doing the thumb on gloves when I do them that way. So I figured something quicker is just to crochet the thumb. And I did it that way, and it doesn't look fantastic. It looks a little bit weird, but I'm not really that bothered about how they look. It's more how they function, and they function absolutely fantastically. So I'm really happy with how those have turned out. The next thing that I made is a bag strap. So I have a bag that I've had for many years, probably over a decade now actually, and it had a strap on it because it's got long straps. Oh no, it's got a long strap and then like two shorter straps to like hold in your hand. I'm not explaining this very well. It's got handles so you can hold it like a handbag, or it's got a long strap so you can wear it like a satchel. And at some point I've lost the long strap and I wanted to have the long strap for it again because that's how I usually use it. And I've got lots of yarn, so I figured I'd have a go at making a strap for it. Now the only trouble with making things out of yarn is that there's a lot of stretch when it comes to like knitted and crocheted things. So I did everything I could to minimize the stretching. There is still a bit of stretch, but because I've used, you can't see it very well in the picture unfortunately, but I've used like proper adjustable bag strap fittings and findings. If it is stretching a lot, I can make the strap shorter to accommodate for it. I made it out of cotton yarn, so there's less stretch than if I'd used wool or acrylic. I've used a smaller crochet hook than I would normally do for that yarn, so that in theory there's less stretch. There's still a bit of stretch, but nowhere near as bad as it would have been had I not taken those steps as well. So into December, the first thing that I made is a little pouch for my earbuds. So I love my earbuds. They're absolutely fantastic. I use them really, really often. But if I'm traveling with them, they're in a bag or a pocket or what have you, I'm always worried that the top is going to pop open and that the earbuds are going to fall out, because the only thing holding it closed and holding them in is a very small magnet, and it's not incredibly strong, so it's easy for things to fall out. So I made this little pouch so that I can attach it to a bag or put it in a pocket and not worry about them falling out, and it's worked really well. I really like it, and it's quite cute actually. So I'm really pleased with how that's come out. This is a triangle shawl slash scarf. Well, it's yeah, it's too small to be a shawl really. It is a scarf. It's similar to the rainbow one that I made for the Secret Santa gift that I gave, or that I sent out last month. But I used 2 strands together and used a larger hook so that it would be a bit thicker, I think, and a bit warmer. It worked really well. It looks quite nice. I added like a couple of plaits to the 2 far ends of longer yarn to make it longer without making it a massive shawl, so that I can wear it as a scarf, just so that I can tie that in the front so that it doesn't slip off, and because I always find that as I'm walking, scarves fall off me if they're not tied down. I don't know if it's just because I move a lot or if that's something that happens to other people as well, but it's not the kind of conversation I usually have with people, so I don't know if it's just something unusual about me. This is I tried to make a crocheted slouch beanie. I used to make them years and years ago when I was first learning how to crochet, and I really liked how they looked on me. So I thought I'd make another one now, and it looks absolutely pants. Like, it's not a very good picture, but I'm not very happy with how it turned out. I've chucked it into a corner somewhere, and when I find it, I'm going to frog it back, and I'm going to use the yarn for something else, because it didn't have the desired effect. It didn't look as nice as I thought it would, and if I don't like how it looks, I'm not going to wear it, so there's no point in having it. Then I made a bee for my colleague Ellie, and as I was making it, another one of my colleagues asked if she could have one as well, so I made those 2 bees. And then whilst I was making that, another person wanted one, so there'll be a 3rd bee further in. I'm really happy with how this turned out. And they're really cute and I really like them. I accidentally missed a page when I was adding the next thing in, so that's why it just says oops. So this is a fail. I have frogged it to try again. Basically I wanted to make like kind of like a bonnet hood type situation. I'll see if I can find a picture of a similar one that I saw, and I wanted something like it. The person selling the hat is only selling the hat and not a pattern, so I kind of tried to reverse engineer it, and it didn't go as I had hoped. I can see kind of where I went wrong with it, so I decided to frog it back and use the yarn to try again, but I turned it into a hat instead, because as I was getting towards the end of it, I realised that I wasn't actually going to wear the hood. I just thought it looked funky and wanted to make one. So instead I've made an actual hat, which is much better. I do use and I like a lot more. So yeah, I made this hat. That's the same yarn that is in this one, except for the grey. I didn't use that because it used up less yarn. And this is the 3rd bee. I've just put same as previous bee entry because it is literally exactly the same as those ones. Then I made a cowl scarf with this chunky yarn that I had. I have no idea what yarn it was. I haven't got the label for it anymore, and I can't find it on any of the websites where I usually buy my yarn from. I have a feeling that I might have bought this yarn when I was on holiday in Cornwall several years ago, so I have no idea which yarn it was, but it's like a super chunky or super bulky yarn. I didn't have any other yarn the same weight as it, so I couldn't even sort of mix it in to make something bigger, but I made this cowl scarf, which I gave to one of my colleagues, because it's not something I'm likely to wear, and she liked it, so I said she could have it. Just gets the yarn used up and out of my house, really. And then I made some flowers. So these are basically copies or similar to flowers that I made for my wedding bouquet. So my friend Lydia, she was my bridesmaid when I got married a couple of years ago. Well, it was last year, but it's nearly 2 years since we got married. I made her a bouquet as well as I made my bouquet, and she has it in a little vase in her house, but she would like some more flowers to make it fill out the vase a bit more. So I still have all of the bits and bobs that I had from making the flowers. It doesn't look like there's very many, but I did make 10. It just looks like there's only a few there, but it's just to sort of bulk out what she already has, and if she needs more I can make more, because I have all of the materials and I have written down what I've done with them. So I I can make a load more if she needs them. I do need to get these to her still. They are in my house at the moment. But hopefully I will see her at some point in the new year and I can give her the flowers then. This scarf I made, I really like it. I came across a picture of it. It's called they called it a Miss Marple scarf because it's similar to one that was worn by the character in one of the, I think, TV adaptations or maybe one of the films. I'm not sure. It's the woman you think of when someone says Miss Marple, but it's basically a keyhole scarf. So it's like you have the end bit and then a tube and then the main part of the scarf and then another bit to feed through the tube, so that you don't have to tie it or anything, and it's just the size of your neck. I went a little bit wrong because I missed out 10 rows on the second, I want to call it a leaf, on the second leaf bit there, so it's a bit smaller than the other, but it's not too noticeable. It just, when I was looking at it, I couldn't figure out why it looked so different when I was convinced I'd done the same thing to both, but obviously I hadn't. But I know for next time. The pattern that I used is the Miss Marple scarf. I did change it a little bit and I've made notes on how I've changed it, so if I want to make it again I can do. Mainly the tube bit that's here is done on both ends, but because I'm only going to put one end through the other, I didn't see the point in making two tubes, so I just made it flat instead, but to match so it looks similar. But yeah, I really like this. I might make more of these in the future in different colours because I've got a lot of yarn that I need to use up, which I will talk about later on. But yeah, I really like this scarf. And that's it for this month so far. I have got a couple of things that I'm still working on that I have mentioned previously. So I've got the triangle scarf in the Cotton Kings yarn and the scrappy sock weight yarn jumper that I'm making. I was kind of hoping that I would have at least one of them finished by the end of this month, but time doesn't really necessarily allow for that, and I'd rather get them done well than rush them to get them finished. It just would be nice to sort of bookend 2023 by having finished everything that I started. So as I mentioned in that previous section of the video, I do have a lot of yarn that I want to use up, and what I've been doing for the last few weeks and what I'm going to continue doing going forward is to only make things to use up the yarn that I already have. I had a bit of a reorganize of my yarns and I realized I have an awful lot of yarn that is either left over from a previous project or is something that I've just bought because I've seen it and gone, oh, that looks nice. I'll probably think of something to make with that at some point, and then I've not. So basically I've set a rule for myself, which is that I'm not allowed to buy any more yarn until I have my yarn stashed down to a more reasonable size. So I have a cardboard box that I've got, which I'm using as my measurement for the yarns that I have, and being able to buy more yarn. There is one caveat to it though. If someone commissions me to make something and I don't have the yarn already, then I am allowed to buy the yarn for that commission. But if I'm making something for myself, or if I am, for example, making a gift for someone, I'm restricting myself to only using what I already have in my stash. I can foresee that that's going to be probably a lot of blankets that I'm going to make and possibly give to people. I do have a few items that I've previously made as well, which I'm going to frog back and then try and use those yarns up as well, because I've got, like, in my quest to make jumpers and cardigans and things for myself, I have had a couple of things where I've made them and then I've just not enjoyed them and I've not worn them, and rather than that yarn going to waste and doing nothing, I'd rather do something with it. As well as knitting and crocheting, I also have 2 different sizes of Addy knitting machine, and I aim to use those more as well this year, and I think that will help me use up a lot of the yarn because I can make things like scarves and hats and potentially a blanket. I'm thinking possibly make a lot of like tubes and then sew them together to make a blanket. The only difficulty with that is that the larger of my knitting machines, the row counter is bust. So I don't actually know how many rows I've done for anything that I've made with it in the last few years. I'm just going off this feels long enough. Like my granddad's scarf that I made, when I spoke to him on Christmas Day to say thank you for my Christmas gift, he said that he'd wrapped it round himself 3 or 4 times and it still was a bit too long. So I might revisit that and make him another scarf that is a more appropriate length. Or next time I go and visit him, take along some supplies to make it a bit shorter. Or potentially make him 2 scarves. If I cut it in half, then he can have 2 scarves of appropriate length rather than one really long scarf. The issue with it is probably that there's some fluff on the sensor, but I am a bit wary of opening it up to clean that bit out, because if I break it, it's really expensive to replace. I've had too long for a warranty to still be in effect, and I don't want to have to buy another one when I already have one. That feels like a waste of money and stuff. When I posted about using up all my yarns and restricting myself to buying nothing until I have only 1 box left, I was met with a bit of scorn and a scoffing reply on the post I made on Tumblr, which annoyed me a little bit, because the person who replied, they don't know me. They've never met me. I'm assuming I don't know them in real life because I don't recognize their username or anything. But yeah, they were very much in disbelief that I would manage this. But I've done it before. I've done it on a shorter term. So basically, I'm going to keep this going until I've used all the yarn up. It might only take me a couple of months. It might take me the year. It might take longer. I don't know until it happens. But we'll see how long it takes. I'm determined to do it because at some point, hopefully, touch wood, this year, me and my husband are hoping to have bought a house. And in moving house, I will also need to move all of my craft stuff. And the less I have of it, or the easier it is to transport, the better it is for moving. And it may not happen. We may not be able to buy a house this year. It depends on the market for the most part. But even so, having less stuff cluttering up our living space is better anyway. And I'm hoping that I can keep it going and not buy too much yarn with I could make something with it, or purposefully buying way too much yarn when I do buy it for a specific project. But we'll see how it goes. I have got a couple of plans for things in the works that I do want to make. For example, one of the gifts that I got off my friend for Christmas was an unofficial Lord of the Rings knit project book. I've had a good look through it, and there are a couple of things I think I will definitely be able to do. So I'm hoping to make a few things out of that at some point in the future. But I do want to try and get either the shawl or the 3/4 length sleeve jumper finished before I start another project, or the next project I start will need to be a small one. I don't like having too many things on the go at once. Since doing this, I found that I work much better when I've only got 2 or 3 things and not 5, 6, 7, 8 things all going at once. Although I might start something if it's in crochet, because both the jumper and the shawl, scarf, shawl, whatever, interchangeable, both of those are knit, and I find it helpful for myself to have a variation in things that I'm doing, whereas they're both mostly just knitting and that's it. So if you've been watching my videos this year, or even if this is your first one, thank you for watching. I'm going to continue doing these each month, and every now and then I will have a tutorial come out. When I finished my shawl/scarf thing, I'm going to do a tutorial on that, but I want to finish that first so that I've got a finished example, and it gives me something, a little goal to work towards as well once I get to that point. So I hope that you all had a lovely 2023, and if it wasn't lovely, I hope that 2024 is lovelier, and I hope that over the festive period you've treated yourself and spent time with your loved ones. And I will see you next year.